we're delighted to welcome you on board as we continue on with the program. We're going to be here till 6 o'clock tonight. And again, our number is 888-787-5543. Again, that's 888-787-5543 if you'd like to be a part of the conversation tonight. We're really excited to welcome our next guest. When you talk about something like resilience, what comes to mind? Well, it has often been called the skill above all others that helps entrepreneurs to excel. But what does it take to become resilient? Intentionally growing in courage is the key to building resilience so we can triumph over any obstacle that might be before us. So says Anne Grady, internationally renowned and recognized speaker, author, and communications and leadership consultant to top companies literally all over the country and, for that matter, around the world. Her new book, just released, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph, has won praise from East Coast to West, and she is from Austin, Texas. That's right, the capital of our great state, and we're delighted to welcome her on board. Hello, Anne. How you doing on this Sunday afternoon?
Hey, Scott. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Great. Well, I want you to say hello to Steve and to Trey because they're going to be alongside as well. They're a couple of practicing divorce attorneys, so they try to keep us all out of trouble, as they say, right? So they're good guys making things happen, but we talk about relationships, and in the round table, we kind of get together every Sunday afternoon at 5 and kind of go over things. And when I told them about what you've done and what you do on a pretty regular basis as a communications and leadership consultant, and then, of course, an author of this book, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph, they said, sounds great. So, guys,
well, hi, guys.
Yeah, say hello to Ann, guys.
Hey, Ann.
Hey, Ann, sounds great.
Well, let's first of all, why don't you do this for us, Ann? I've kind of given you or given our audience just a little background about who you are and what you're all about and what you do day to day. But why don't you give us a little more information, anything that might shed some light on who you are and what you do and how you got involved in what you do?
All right. Well, so I have a master's in organizational communication, and my goal was to get into the field of training and speaking, and I was working with communication and influence and emotional intelligence and productivity. And then I had my son, Evan, and everything just kind of blew up. Evan was a really difficult baby, just inconsolable. When he was about 18 months old, I found myself as a single mom, now trying to balance a career, motivating others, and staying sane myself. And so what I found is that none of the stuff I learned in school really worked. I was working with executives and CEOs, and I was coaching clients, and none of the things that I thought worked in theory actually worked in practice. So I threw them all out, and I started keeping a collection of strategies. And initially they were just to help me stay above water, to deal with a constantly challenging situation. Nobody knew what was wrong with Evan, and many people didn't actually believe me. He's 14 now and has been through 2 extended hospitalizations. He's an amazing kid. He's smart and he's funny and he's boy as boy can get, but he's severely mentally ill. So I've lived in the Ronald McDonald House for a long time. We've been to dozens and dozens of specialists, tried more medications than I can count, had an in-home care provider for over 6 years, therapy 2 times a week. I mean, you can imagine. And so what I learned along the way is that there are these strategies that work to influence his behavior, but I found they also worked when dealing with business, and whether it's a corporate environment, a nonprofit, a law firm, or an engineering firm, it really doesn't matter. The same skills apply. Then in 2014, I had just published my first book, 52 Strategies for Life, Love, and Work, and I was diagnosed with a tumor in my salivary gland. And so we had just discharged Evan from the hospital the second time. I went in for surgery that was supposed to be pretty routine, but the tumor was much larger than anticipated, which resulted in facial paralysis on the right-hand side, which meant I couldn't close my eye, I couldn't speak well, I had a speech impediment, and the day after the surgery, a speck of dust scratched my cornea. So I was told that I would need to get a gold weight implanted in my upper eyelid and stitch up the bottom eyelid, and I needed to do that before I started 6 weeks of radiation, but not before I went on a last weekend getaway and fell down the stairs and broke my foot in 4 places. So that became the impetus for the current book, which is Strong Enough, really figuring out how you can take what life throws at you and turn it in a positive direction.
Oh, my
Well,
gosh.
I don't know where to start. This is only an hour show. Are there any other... My gosh.
Oh, I've had skin cancer 6 times this year, so I like to keep life interesting.
Wow. I just got to ask, and you never ask women her age, but I just have to know, how old are you?
I'm 42, going on 80.
Okay, that is amazing. That you
all that at 42.
suffered through
My
that.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how are you on this Sunday in the month of May?
I am wonderful. I'm fantastic. I feel great. My son had a good day, so that's nice. He got to go fishing today, and I'm here with my family. I remarried when Evan was about 5 years old, so I've got a beautiful 15-year-old stepdaughter who's just gotten her driver's permit. So we've got all kinds of good stuff going on.
Well, I remember the young daughter getting the permit. I remember those days. Oh, all too well.
Very scary.
Yes, it's nerve-wracking.
we wish you and her well.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about the book, Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph. Obviously, from all that you've shared with us in this short period already, it's pretty obvious why you would pick some of those verticals to talk about. But let's talk about the courage aspect of it. You know, there's a lot of people in this world that have to endure 1/10 of what it sounds like you've had to endure in your young life. And I just wondered how you had the self-esteem, the self-worth, the confidence to know that, you know what, I've got to be strong here. I can't let this adversity take me. I'm going to make sure I overcome it. What was it? Where did that come from that you said, you know what, I'm going to have enough courage. I'm going to have the resilience so that I can triumph?
Well, I wish it was that deliberate. You know, first, let me go back to your initial comment, which is there are other people who struggle with, you know, a portion of what I deal with. So there's something called comparative suffering. I was talking about this in my most recent TED Talk, how when people tell you my situation is nothing compared to yours, but, well, that's an exercise in futility. We all struggle at 100%. It's all relative. I know lots of people who have a permanent seat on the struggle bus, but, you know, everybody's got their own stuff, and just because it's not the same as somebody else's doesn't make it better or worse, good, bad, you know, more severe, less severe. It just kind of is what it is. In terms of where did I get the courage to do that? So I've always been pretty tenacious. I refused to eat until I could tie my own shoes when I was 2 years old. I've always been pretty goal-oriented, self-directed, sometimes too much so. And so when everything happened with Evan, I really didn't feel strong enough. There were so many days where I thought I can't do it anymore. I'm exhausted. And what I found is that courage starts there. Courage starts with the messages that you send yourself, you know, because we see the world based on the way we see ourselves. It's impossible to act and behave in a way that is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. So part of it is figuring out what messages am I sending myself that are self-defeating. And for me, it was, I can't do it. Woe is me. It's not fair. Why did this happen to me? And what I found is that even though those statements might have been true or justified, they weren't serving me. So I started coming up with replacement thoughts. And it's you know, basic psychology, but for me it was really powerful to come up with a few sayings that reflected reality. It wasn't like, hey, I'm the luckiest mom in the world. I'm so excited to get, you know, hit every morning. It was, you know what it is. And all I can do is all I can do. And then just telling myself, you've got this. And I used to think you had to be Wonder Woman, but the truth is you just have to be strong enough. And for all of your listeners, you know, I would ask a question. How many of you have survived the worst thing that's ever happened to you? And my guess would be just about everybody, which is proof that you're already courageous and resilient. It's just about making daily, deliberate choices to handle situations a bit differently than you might in the past, to use that. And quite honestly, if I hadn't had the strength and resilience training with Evan that I had, I don't know if I would have been strong enough to handle the tumor and the facial paralysis and the radiation and the broken foot and the skin cancer. So it's using it in a way that helps use discomfort as a catalyst to help you grow rather than knock you down.
Interesting. Are you a spiritual person?
I have faith. I'm absolutely spiritual. I don't know if I'd say religious. But yeah, faith is a huge part of it because there's got to be something bigger than us. And sometimes it's difficult when you're trying to understand why things happen the way they do, but understanding that it's just part of a bigger plan. We don't always know the answers. It's not always easy, but it's part of something larger than ourselves. And I have to believe that to keep me going.
Well, the reason I ask that is not just religion, because some people are very religious and look to the good Lord for the support and whatever it might be in their daily life, and yet others are more of a spiritual, I don't want to say transcendental, but more spiritual, and it's whatever. And I just wondered where this all comes from, because it's amazing with all that you've had to endure that you continue to overcome it and move forward as you are, and now share your message with others.
It doesn't feel amazing, I can tell you that. I got a call on Friday from Evan's school, and again, he's 14 now, and the police had him in custody because he had a violent episode at school, and he was flipping over tables, and they had to clear the classroom. And I spent a couple of hours in tears and really, really sad. But what I've learned through all of my research is that that's actually very healthy. A lot of people try to stuff the uncomfortable feelings, and they don't want to process it, whether it's grief or disappointment or anger or whatever the emotion is. When it's not comfortable, we try to get away from it. One of the traits of resilient and courageous people, though, is that they allow themselves the time and space to process whatever they're feeling and not assign a judgment. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's not good, it's not bad, it's not fair, it's not unfair. But if you don't let yourself feel it and process it, it comes out sideways, and that's where it ends up hurting your relationships and damaging your life, and it creates drama and chaos that could have been prevented had you spent the time processing the uncomfortable emotions.
Well, I know Steve and Trey have a couple of questions, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll turn it over to them and continue on as we move forward with Anne Grady from Austin, author of Strong Enough, Choosing Courage, Resilience, and Triumph, here on Relationship Roundtable, 570 KLIF.